Hey, it's Morgan here at Goldshaw Farm, and I'm just back with a quick video to answer a question that a lot of you guys have of how do you tell the difference between a male duck and a female duck? I find that the first and easiest method is
boys have a penis, girls have a vagina.
The sound that the bird makes. So for most breeds of duck, you're gonna find that the drakes, or the males, make sort of a raspy noise, and the hens and females make a quack. So you see here, I've got a Pekin drake. His name is Samson, and he's making that raspy noise. And I also have over here this Khaki Campbell duck, and she is making a quack, like more of a traditional quack. So in the earliest days of a duckling becoming a duck, that's the easiest thing I look for, and I really start to listen to their voice and what they sound like. Because as you guys know, the ducklings, they make this like peep, 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 peep. But you'll start to notice probably around week 4-ish or so that the males are going to continue to make more of a peep, but it's going to start to turn into a rasp. And the females are going to start to go to a little bit higher register, and it's going to sound more and more like a quack. The reason for this is because the voice box of a male duck is differently formed than the voice box of a female duck. I don't know why that is. There's all sorts of evolutionary reasons. You can make assumptions about why that is. But at the end of the day, all I know is that's a fact. It's an anatomical fact. And it makes a big difference between the male duck and the female duck. Another way to distinguish is by coloring. So if you watch here, right, you'll notice that my one drake, Mundungus Fletcher, his coloring is very different in terms of what he's got on his wings, in terms of the color of his head, versus the rest of his body feathers. And so that is definitely an easy way to tell the difference, and that's also a characteristic that you're going to start to see pop up around week 4 in your ducks, but then becomes very pronounced by week 6. The only challenge is it's tough for me to be specific about the differences there in that one. What I would really encourage you to do is go on like different hatchery websites and look at the different breeds of duck that they have. They will usually show a picture of a drake versus a hen, so you can see the distinction by gender of what the bird ultimately looks like as an adult. And let that coloring guide you. So as you start to see patterns emerge that would say that, hey, it looks a little bit more male versus female, you've got some good indicators there just based on the plumage. You know, the other distinction that I've noticed with feathers that pops up around, I don't know, somewhere between weeks 6 and 9 is the evolution of a sex feather.
Wouldn't sex feather make an awesome name for a band?
So the sex feather is a curly tail feather that pops up on the butt of the duck. You notice it, and the drakes, it appears it's curly. The hens don't have this curly feather, and that's probably the easiest way to do it. When people like email me pictures and be like, yo dude, tell me what sort of duck this is, that's always the first thing I'm gonna look for, because it just becomes such a clear indicator, particularly when you have a breed of duck like say a Pekin, where their gender, color, or feather coloring is often very similar. The only problem with using the sex feather is that it isn't always available. You don't always see it, and you know, and sometimes a year, like so for example Mundungus or drake, he doesn't have any sex feather right now, and so that would say to me that he's not necessarily a male, but I know for a fact he is, so that's a distinction. Another very obvious distinction, but really you won't see this start to develop as a behavior until, I don't know, maybe at least week 16 is the earliest, is you're going to start to see the drakes start to mount the females. And so if you see one duck using the other duck as a surfboard, usually that means that the duck who's surfing is the one who's going to be the male. The one who is on the surfboard side of things, that's usually the female, but that's also not always the case. If you have a lot of females relative to your male ratio, or if you have a lot of males relative to your female ratio, you can see a male do that to another male or a female do that to another female. And now probably the final way I'll call out for distinguishing is based on size. So you can actually see here our young duck flock. These guys are about, I don't know, 10 weeks old at this point. So if you look at these guys, I might have to herd them in the house so that I can get you a better look at them. I've isolated 2 drakes and a hen. So you can see the difference in coloring between the two. You also notice a difference in size where that drake is much bigger than this hen right here. Okay, I've wrangled ducks for you. So to just give you guys a little bit of a closer look, right? So here is a khaki Campbell drake. Notice the darker head relative to her, just sort of single shade that sort of clearly transitioned to her body feathers. This fella here has a clear distinction between his head feathers and his body feathers. You'll also notice actually another coloration difference on the khaki Campbell. Look at their beak color. Notice how his is sort of a yellowish green and hers is like almost a black. That's another great way to tell the difference. And then, I don't know if they're making noise right now because they're probably a little nervous that I'm holding them like this. She is a very loud young lady. He's rather quiet and stoic about the whole situation. You might hear a little rasp from him, but not much. And I'm not sure how good a visual this is giving you of it, but you'll notice that he's actually a bit bigger. He probably weighs, I don't know, a couple of pounds heavier than she does. In terms of behavior differences with the male ducks and the female ducks, there's definitely some distinctions there. I mean, the most obvious ones, right? The females are gonna give you eggs. The males will make sure that your females have babies. Here on our farm, we like to try to keep a ratio of male to female of about 5 or 6 female ducks for every 1 male duck. The reason for this is the duck mating process can be pretty physically taxing on the female, and if you have too many males relative to the number of females, you can really get your girls beat up good. I mean, even in the ratio that we have, you can see sort of towards the latter part of the summer and mating season that the neck of the females is always sort of rubbed down. So that's really from the mating process, and like the male bites the back of the neck of the female while they're mating to sort of ride the surfboard, if you will. And that's just part of the process. That's nature. It's actually not that different in what you see with our geese too. You can have a flock of all females. You can actually have a flock of all males. You know, one thing I suggest for people who want to have just a couple of ducks and live in the suburbs and have neighbors who are going to complain about a loud female duck, if you have like 2 or 3 drakes, that's like perfect for your situation. You never want to have a duck living by itself because they're flock animals, but if you have like 2 or 3, like they have a friend, they're usually pretty good. So I hope you guys found this information useful. If you did, please subscribe. And if you want to learn more about what we've got going on here at our farm, watch this playlist up here and you'll learn all about what's happening here at Goldshaw Farm. Thanks. Okay, Toby, we just shot our video for the day. High five. Boom.